a buck decoy, a ghillie suit, and a buck named Tall Paul. This is why you bow hunt the warriors of the fall. Folks, what I'm going to go over right now is last night's bow hunt, the setup, and what I may have done wrong in regards to going after this buck called Tall Paul. So let's go over that right now. This summer, I had a buck show up on cell cam called Tall Paul. And Tall Paul was a buck that was quickly added to the target list of bucks. And he ended up disappearing probably about a week or two before the Wisconsin bow opener. And usually I see this in the past where when these bucks disappear during the opener or shortly thereafter, they do make an appearance back. And Tall Paul came back. And I actually had him on a couple of times on trail camera. So the one thing that I noticed to go after Tall Paul is that he came back to a particular bedding area, and he did it about 6 o'clock in the morning, 6:10 I believe it was. And I was like, okay, I know where he's bedding now, and I'm gonna go after him. Just to give you an idea of this property that I hunt, this property is an 18-acre swamp, and it is surrounded all by farm fields. Open farm field on one direction, there is standing corn yet on the other side. With that being said, I decided to sport the ghillie suit and go sit on one of these brushy edges. It's all grass, like I said, a lot of buckthorn. So the ghillie suit really works well in this instance. And the other thing is, I put the deer decoy out thinking that if I'm on the ground, it will take his attention off of me when he comes out, and that he will focus strictly on the deer decoy. The first mistake I made was I set up, and I should know better, but I set up assuming that Tall Paul was gonna come out the same hole in the swamp that he went into in the morning. So I have a Montana decoy, and a Montana decoy is not technically 3D dimensional. If you get to the front or to the back of it, you can, it gets real skinny, looks like a credit card. So I faced the decoy at that entrance level that Tall Paul went into. Now, hunting whitetails for quite a few years, there's one thing I've noticed is that the area that a buck goes into, whether early morning or evening, they never come out of that same area because there's that possibility that a predator could backtrack them. So why would they come back out and have a deer or have a predator come after them? So what they're always going to do is when they go in, they're gonna come out somewhere else. And matter of fact, he did just that last night. Tall Paul decided to come out not from the entrance, but from a different spot. And like I said, I should have known better. So he came down about 180 yards down from the entrance spot where I expected him to come from. He popped out, I looked at him real quick. I then proceeded to look down, open up the viewfinder on my camcorder that starts the camcorder, hit the record button, and then I had my bow leaning up against a tree, gently just grab the bow and bring it over. You're probably talking about maybe 8 to 10 seconds for that to all happen. And when I look back up, he was gone already. And I'm like, whoa, he was just there. And I can see clearly to the field edge. Where did he go? He just was there and gone. So I hit the grunt call, and when I hit the grunt call, he was already down about 30, 40 yards in the woods, and he was basically going along on the wooded edge. And when I hit the grunt call, he popped out, and he didn't pop out where I expected. When I set up my decoy, I set up the decoy off on an angle, once again, to take the view off of me. Look back at that decoy and then stare at that decoy. And he was staring at that decoy. And he sat in one spot for 5 minutes where he did not move. He knew that decoy should have been doing something. Now, one thing I was going to do is I was going to put a little tail on it. And I was messing with it yesterday afternoon a little bit, experimenting with a piece of fabric. And I thought, it shouldn't really make a difference. And looking back at it, I think it might have made a little bit of a difference, because it would have made the decoy at least look like he was a little more real. But there was movement to him at least. And that, looking back, I think was maybe a second mistake that I made. Tall Paul had a standoff with the decoy. He then went back, pawed a little bit, took his antlers and hit some branches above, kind of making a little bit of a scrape, a natural scrape. And, you know, he just wanted to make that deer move, I believe is what he wanted to do. He wasn't aggressive enough to mess with the decoy. Instead, he went out into the open field area where it really opens up, and then it's just fields upon fields. So I thought that was kind of unique that he went that route instead of the other route, but of course, he's a smart buck and he knows what he's doing. So as he took off, he went around the side of me, and that is when he ended up hitting my track on the walk-in. When he hit my track, he definitely knew something was up, and then he got out of dodge. Another thing that I noticed about Tall Paul was that the picture that I had of him of that morning going into the bedding area is that his neck really wasn't truly swollen like some of the other bucks that I've been seeing on trail camera. So, you know, I don't know if you put much into this, but maybe his testosterone levels weren't high enough to come out and challenge my decoy. Now, I've used the decoy in the past and it's worked well for me. I've gotten 2 bucks off of it. I know I've heard the stories of people scaring bucks, and I guess this is my story of that happening to me. You know, the decoys don't always work. So whether or not his testosterone level wasn't high enough, and can you tell that from a trail camera picture? Maybe, maybe not. But any way or either way, Tall Paul lives another day. Well, folks, it wouldn't be bow hunting if you didn't make mistakes. And I'm not even sure that I truly made mistakes, but there are some things I'm going to tweak and change differently going forward. Am I going to use a decoy again? Absolutely. But it will be under different circumstances and maybe for different reasons. If you folks don't mind, please hit that subscribe button. This video camera and video cameras will be coming with me, and I am going to do everything in my power to get a nice buck in the back of that truck and show you folks at home on how I did it and went about it. Once again, I hunt public land properties and very small knock-on-door permission properties. So if you're into that style of hunting, this may be the channel for you. Until next time, Clint from Oak and Iron Outdoors.